Hello and welcome to another episode on Maritime Radar. Shipping methods are of global concern as concerted efforts are being made all over the world to decarbonize maritime transport. Notably, shipping accounts for about 3% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions and the 6th position if it were a country after China, the US, India, Russia, and Japan. With the Green Shipping Conference taking place in different countries of the world, it therefore means that the world agrees that there is an urgent need to find a remedy to greenhouse gas emissions in shipping. How to promote green shipping in Africa and propose solutions for environmentally friendly and sustainable shipping methods will be the issues on the front burner on today's show. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. The go-to solution to greenhouse gas emissions widely adopted is the production of hydrogen fuel as an alternative. Africa is not left out of this worldwide conversation to mitigate carbon dioxide from the atmosphere as it pushes the boundaries for global leadership in the production of hydrogen energy. Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Namibia, and Mauritania has become torchbearers on the continent when they formed Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance in 2022. Before we get further into today's lineup on the program, let's find out the latest in maritime news.
Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has signed 4 executive orders. The Special Advisor to the President on Special Duties, Communication and Strategy, Dele Alake, while briefing State House reporters, said that these interventions are to address the key concerns of manufacturers and other stakeholders regarding some recent tax changes. The first one is the Finance Act Order 2023, with a new deferred commencement date of September 1, 2023. There is also the Customs Excise Tariff Amendment Order 2023, which will start on August 1, 2023, and the President's suspension of the Import Tax Adjustment Levy on certain vehicles. There is also an order suspending the 5% excise tax on telecommunication services, as well as the excise duties escalation on locally manufactured products. The President also announced the suspension of the newly introduced green tax by way of excise tax on single-use plastics, including plastic containers and bottles. At a breakfast meeting organized by the Maritime Reporters Association of Nigeria in Lagos, the former Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, Temesa Omasei, made a compelling case for the development of riverine ports as a solution to the deplorable state of infrastructure at the Tinkan Island port. Omasei emphasized the need for the government to recognize and appreciate the value of riverine transportation in Nigeria. The former Nemasa boss proposed a radical approach to alleviating the strain on the overburdened Tinkan Island port, suggesting terminal operators should only be allowed to operate in Lagos if they have a waterfront location. This, he said, will promote the relocation of operations to areas like Ekpe or Ikorodu. He further advocated for the establishment of a terminal in Ijebu waterside with the assistance of the Ondo State government and the construction of a dual carriage road to Ore. These strategic developments would encourage cargo movement away from Lagos, ultimately easing the strain on the port and boosting the economy of other regions. The International Maritime Organization, in collaboration with the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, has implemented the GLO-LITER Partnerships Project. This is the first global project focused on marine litter from sea-based sources. The GLO-LITER project has supported 10 lead partner countries and 20 partner countries with 7 national action plans. Tamara Barabachi, the GLO-LITER Partnerships Project Manager, IMO, said the project has seen countries commit on a significant scale to the importance of addressing sea-based litter on global, regional and national levels, which has resulted in a growing portfolio of the ongoing IMO and FAO joint projects. The plastic reduction in the Oceans Plan will run between 2025 and 2029. If confirmed, the aim is to build on GLOW-LITER achievements and to support 5 or 6 countries to implement already existing national action plans. The US Navy said it intervened to prevent Iran from seizing 2 commercial tankers in the Gulf in the latest series of seizures and attacks on ships in the area since 2019. The Navy 5th Fleet spokesperson Timothy Hawkins added that the incident, which involved the Richmond Voyager, a very large crude carrier managed by the US oil company, the crew on board safe, and an Iranian naval vessel fired shots during the second seizure attempt. Both incidents are said to have taken place in the Gulf, in waters between Iran and Oman. Since 2019, there have been a series of attacks on shipping in the strategic Gulf waters at times of tension between the United States and Iran. Iran seized 2 oil tankers in a week just over a month ago, the US Navy had added.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
If you are just joining us, this is Maritime Radar. Ghana is a regional hotspot for green hydrogen development, placing it fourth on the continent in their Green Hydrogen Sustainability Index report of 2021. Ghana also made history when it hosted the first ever International Green Shipping Conference in Africa. Joining me to shed light on the conversation Africa should be having on the transition to green shipping and the role of collaboration for Africa's political and economic aspirations is Asana Sylvia, a maritime expert, Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Shippers Authority, and President, Women in Maritime of West and Central Africa. Stay with us. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be on the show, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm really happy to be here.
Let's start this conversation looking at the World Maritime Day theme, which is New Technologies for Greener Shipping. What conversation do you think Africa should be having around the transition to green shipping?
So let me start by saying that climate change is a global issue, and it should be of concern to all, including the maritime industry. This is because 90% of the goods that are transported globally are transported by sea. And these vessels that transport the goods use heavy fuels that generate carbon emissions. Studies have also shown that 3% of the emissions generated worldwide through activities are from the maritime industry. So there's really the need for us in the industry to do something about carbon emissions, that are being generated through the use of the vessels in transportation of the goods. The UN body that regulates the maritime industry, International Maritime Organization, has even predicted that if action is not taken, in the next couple of years, in 2050, we'll have the maritime sector alone generating about 30%, more of the carbon emissions that the world is faced with. Consequently, the IMO has come out with a target to reduce carbon emissions by 50% by 2050. This means that all of us will have to take action. From the IMO point of view, they have already started some action. by coming out with a regulation 2020 on the sulfur emissions that should be generated from vessels. This means that vessels will have to use fuel that emits lower, emissions. They'll have to use fuels that generate lower emissions. Yes, lower emissions, And they are also promoting the use of alternative fuels like carbon neutral fuels and liquefied natural gas by vessels that operate on the oceans. In addition to that, they have encouraged people to, as it were, construct vessels that are friendly in the use of fuels, instead of the heavy fuels that were being used. And I must say, in the developed countries where they have the funds, some have even started building vessels that are energy efficient. For instance, I just read in the media that Maersk will be releasing about 8 vessels that will use carbon neutral fuel, methanol. All these are ways and means of reducing the carbon emissions that are generated in the industry, the maritime industry, promoting greener shipping. But when we come to Africa, what exactly are we supposed to do? Okay. We don't have the funds to, as it were, construct vessels that we expect, the world to have. But we can also promote sustainable, maritime domain by ensuring that the policies that we put in place are policies that promote green shipping, you see. And luckily, the IMO has a program to support capacity building and training for developing countries. Maybe we need to take advantage of that to build capacity as to what to do to sustain our maritime domain. And whatever support the IMO can give, I think we have to look at that. I know some of our ports are also taking steps to ensure that when vessels call at our port, they do not still put on they put off their engines and use power supplies that have been, arranged for at the port. Instead of, putting on their vessels, they have energy sources that the vessels can tap into instead of keeping their engines on that will, emit some of these emissions, toxic emissions that we are all against. Some of the ports in Africa are doing so, especially, I know about Ghana ports, they are doing that, and I'm sure other ports in Africa are also following suit.
Okay, those are beautiful solutions you've preferred there. And you also mentioned that IMO's goal for decarbonization by 2050. Do you think the goal of full decarbonization by 2050 is ambitious for Africa?
Well, it is a global ambition. When IMO is taking measures or coming up with goals, it's for the whole of the world, not only Africa. It may be, when you connect it to Africa, it may appear a bit ambitious, but we can also do what we can, to ensure that we meet our targets, especially when there's some kind of support. That's why I'm saying that we should explore the opportunities that will allow us to take advantage and be part of the global solution to this problem.
Okay, coming back home, you are the Deputy CEO of Ghana Shipping Authority. How has the authority fared in its mandate of protecting and promoting the interest of shipping and shippers?
Yeah, the Shippers Authority has been in existence for over 50 decades. 5 decades, 10 decades, 5 decades. That's about 50 years. Yeah. We've been in existence for about 50 years. Yes, and of course, we've been at the forefront of championing the interests of shippers in Ghana. And I believe in Africa, we have similar institutions that sprang up, over the years to promote and protect the interests of the vulnerable shippers, exporters and importers that we have. in relation to maybe the port, the charges, and the transport problems, to ensure that they have reliable transport system and then cost-effective cargo handling system, So obviously we've been doing this for the past how many years? And you know that shipping is quite dynamic. So definitely we have evolved over the years to meet the challenges that shippers go through. And that means that we constantly have to build capacity for these shippers. I'm sure the way we looked at shipping 50 years ago is different from now. And
Absolutely.
Shippers will have to constantly, catch up with what is going on. So the role of my organization is actually to ensure that they build capacity, get the needed training, so that they can catch up, and also derive maximum benefit from the trade in the maritime sector and the transport sector.
So how has this collaboration been, especially when you look at the African free trade continental area? How has this fared, this collaboration with other authorities, as you mentioned?
The AFTA, as we call it, is a very good idea. It's a noble idea. And we think that it's about time for Africa to actually come together to promote trade, to promote intra-African trade. And that is the aim of the AFTA, That's the aim of the AFTA, to promote intra-African trade, which we think is even long overdue. Because when you look at the statistics, in actual for Africa, we don't trade amongst ourselves. The statistics is very low.
So what do you think? What do you think we should do more to ensure that this collaboration and this trade amongst us is being harnessed?
It's good to start with this agreement, this trade agreement. That is a fantastic move, but that also helps us to identify the challenges that we have as a continent that we need to tackle. You understand? We have challenges with infrastructure, we have challenges with security, we have challenges with free movement of persons. And I think this AFTA, with the support of African Union, is beginning to tackle these problems. And that is the way to go. Once we tackle some of these problems, we can then go ahead and promote the trade act. And even whilst we are doing it, I think it's bringing to the fore some of the challenges.
That well said. We will be looking at the laws and policies across the continent, which can help encourage investment within the shipping industry. But that will be after this short break. Please stay with us.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
If you are just joining us, this is Maritime Radar, and I still have with me Asana, Sylvia, Owo. Before we went on that break, I said, what are the things that you think that concerning our laws and policies across the continent, which can help encourage investment within Africa's shipping industry?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that once countries in Africa, the 54 countries in Africa, agree that we want to be part of this Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, then definitely you should have what it takes to support it to be successful.
Yeah.
And I have, I think there's a zeal, there's a momentum, there's a support that it's being pushed for the success of this.
But it appears that we need an increased synergy, especially amongst the West African region, because this after will ensure economic growth of the maritime sector. Do you think we started having this conversation?
Yes, I think the synergy is very, very important. And the momentum that is, being seen from the various heads of state in relation to this, I think it's a good way to go. Recently they came out with a payment system for exporters and importers who will be operating within the region. Instead of maybe using the dollar, the euro to pay, there's a system that makes it easier for them to operate. And various countries have supported it, and they have championed it. The central banks in some of the countries, I think about 5 or 6 countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, and Sierra Leone, and many more countries have taken on board this idea, and their central banks are working hard to ensure that businesses flow smoothly. That is one aspect of it. The custom union too are looking at how they can collaborate amongst themselves to ensure that they remove those tariffs that will make it easy for traders to operate within Africa. And if we're able to make it attractive enough, I'm sure there will be people who will be interested in investing in some of the raw materials and adding value to the raw materials that we have in this country, because in this continent, because as a continent we really have a lot that we can be proud of.
Okay, let's go to the other cap that you also wear. You are the President Women in Maritime of Western Central Africa. The aim of your association is to empower and encourage women participation in the maritime sector. So how will you say that has fared in your chapter, Ghana, and around the continent?
We still have to do a lot. Female participation in the sector is of concern to all, But statistics have it that we are only 2% when you look at the global labor force, the maritime labor force. And that means that a lot needs to be done, And I think the International Maritime Organization has taken the lead. And WIMOCA is one of the creations of IMO that we recently launched. It covers West and Central Africa, and we are not doing badly. So far, we have about 13 countries, our presence in about 13 countries out of the 22 countries that we have in West and Central Africa.
Okay, with the success recorded in such a short time, WIMOCA, the success in such a short time, what do you think in the next 5 years? Do you think this figure of 2% will increase, and to what percentage?
We have to look at it globally. WIMOCA alone cannot do that. We only do our bit, and we'll continue to do, but I don't want to add figures to it because we are all working together. I'm hoping that in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, maybe we will probably do double what the world is doing. So we are trying to put together the data. It is when we have the complete data that we can be sure of where we're going from there. I can't just sit and say from on the top of my head that we're going to do this, even though we're speculating. But we will put together the data, see where we are, and then see how we can move forward.
And putting the data is imperative, so you'll be able to have a better assessment. But I must thank you for your time on the program. I love the solutions you've provided to issues of greener shipping and all that, and I can only wish you well in your future endeavors. It's been Asana Sylvia Owo. She is the President Women in Maritime West and Central Africa. I must thank you most kindly for your time on the program.
It's my pleasure to be on your program. Thank you.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
And that's our show this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. Every week, join us on Maritime Radar as we explore factors that will ensure the development of the maritime sector in Africa. You can also expect the latest in global maritime news and industry insights right here. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Many thanks for your time and see you again next week.